excited to share our most innovative Pro lineup yet.
NANI?! So this is the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and what you have just watched was shot entirely on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, except for this shot and this shot. So what I got here is the iPhone 14 Pro Max. It's a much anticipated phone, but it's a letdown in some ways as well. And why it's a letdown, you might ask? You will find out in a later part of this video. So in this video, we're mainly going to talk about the phone in terms of a photographer and a filmmaker's perspective, and some other specs that might intrigue the layman. So without further ado, let's begin this video with a little bit of unboxing ASMR. So talking about the basic specs of the iPhone 14 lineup, it has two different sizes of 6.1 inch and 6.7 inch. It comes in 4 different colors, and the one I've got is space gray. I mean, I love black lah, so but the newest color is deep purple, which is the more popular one that people will actually take a like to. And the two other colors are silver and gold, which is the main feel that it has been coming out over the years. For the deep purple itself, the colors will shine a little bit different in terms of the lighting, so do take note of that. You can check out the other couple of reviews where people actually gotten the iPhone 14 deep purple color, and it really looks very different in terms of the lighting. Like, it shines differently, and sometimes it even looks black or grey, and then sometimes it looks very purple. Apart from that, there are 4 different capacities: 128GB, 256GB, 512GB, and 1TB. So one thing that might surprise you is that your phone is actually waterproof to a certain extent, and the iPhone 14 Pro is rated at IP68. And what does IP68 means? It basically means that your phone can be submerged underwater for a certain time limit, and according to IP68, it says you can submerge water for up to 30 minutes to an hour. So I won't personally test that, but if you ever need a water shot or underwater shot, you can actually use your phone. And there's also another YouTuber called Peter Lindgren that actually used his iPhone 13 mini to shoot underwater, which kind of surprised me to a certain extent. So I mean, he's a living proof lah. I won't do that because I'm too scared. And also another new thing is that it comes with the A16 Bionic chip, which is a newest chip so far coming from Apple. However, the speed of it it's not so much different from the A15, and something that you might want to check out is that when Apple showed the scores of the A16 chip, it's actually in comparison to the A13, not the A15. Reason being because probably A15 and A16 is really not much different, and as you can see from the Geekbench score, it's not much different from each other. So for the A16, it might be slightly more powerful, but it's definitely more power efficient, giving it a longer lasting battery of 29 hours for the Pro Max and 23 hours for the Pro. So I'm just sprinkling all these facts that I find a little bit interesting. So if you want a more in-depth video, you should definitely check out all the bigger creators, because I would think videos surrounding the iPhone 14 is really much saturated right now. So big creators like Peter McKinnon, Sarah Dici, MKBHD, iJustin, and all those tech YouTubers will be covering a relatively in-depth iPhone 14, so you can go and check that out. So getting into the juicy stuff, so if you're a non-nerd, you can click away, but it would be good if you watch on. So if you're a nerd like myself, stay on to watch this video. So you'll be talking mainly about the camera aspects of this phone. So for the camera itself, it has 3 different cameras. The main camera at 48 megapixel at 24mm. It has an aperture of f1.78 and it has a sensor shift optical image stabilization, which is relatively good. And looking at the results, I would say the stabilization is really top notch. So for the second camera, it's an ultra wide camera at 13mm, 12 megapixels, and aperture of f2.2. It also has the sensor shift optical image stabilization, which is really good. So for the third camera, it's a telephoto camera at 77mm and also 12 megapixels. It has an aperture of f2.8, however it only has the normal image optical stabilization. So do take note of that when you're using the telephoto. So yes, this camera might be similar to the previous iPhone 13 Pro Max. Apart from the 48 megapixel main camera, the difference amongst iPhone 13 and iPhone 14 cameras is that it has a 2x zoom now. Basically, previously there's only 0.5, 1x and 3x, now has 2x. Basically, it's just a crop in of the 48 megapixel picture. And as you can see from this sample itself, I would honestly say that the telephoto actually looks clearer than the 2x. And then 0.5x is clear, 1x is clear, 2x a little bit blur, but then 3x is actually clearer. So you might want to take note of that when you're using the 2x zoom. So in terms of photography, you're able to shoot macro as well with the wide lens. So diving deep into the video aspects of the iPhone 14 Pro, you're able to shoot up to 4K 60 and also 4K 30 for the cinematic mode, which previously you can only shoot 1080 30. So another interesting mode that Apple has implemented in the iPhone 14 is this action mode, which is really cool. It gives extreme stability to your shots whenever you are running, literally running. If you're shaking like hell, your footage is actually really stable. However, you will get a very massive crop in and you are only able to shoot up to 2.8K at 60 frames per second. And talking about codecs, you are able to shoot Apple ProRes on the phone itself, so it makes it a lot easier for you to edit if you are using a Mac. And for the ProRes itself, you are able to shoot up to 4K 30. However, if you are using the iPhone 14 Pro or Pro Max at 128 gigs, you are only limited to 1080 ProRes. So you cannot really shoot 4K ProRes on the 128 gig. If you want to shoot 4K ProRes, you have to actually get the bigger memory ones from 256 and above, because apparently 1 minute of ProRes 4K is 6 gig, which is damn big. So basically, if you want to shoot a 4K ProRes on the 128 gig, you will only be able to shoot up to 21 minutes of footage. So basically, you cannot shoot anything else, or you cannot install any other apps. So probably that's why they only allowed 4K 30 ProRes on the 256 gig onwards. So with all the specs out of the way, let's get started in testing the camera itself. So let's go! So for the test, we'll be doing 4 different types of tests for the video. One is testing the action mode, one is testing the cinematic mode, the one is testing the normal video, which is 48 megapixel, which by right is able to shoot up to 8K, but Apple did not implement that, so yeah. And then lastly, we'll be shooting the front-facing camera. So in terms of photography, we'll be doing a side-by-side comparison with a couple of shots with the Huawei P30, which is apparently a very good photography phone, iPhone 14 Pro Max, and my very own camera, which is the Sony A7 Mark III. So I will leave it up there without the name so you can test your eyesight and see which one is which. So let's start with video first. So the first video test will be action mode. So we're gonna test the action mode and see whether it's smooth lah. So I'm gonna run first. Rose, you know, has shaky hands, so we're gonna try and see whether it's nice. Then we're gonna swap.
Okay.
put the footage on the screen, you can see whether it's shaky or not. Tired. Okay, let's go. So for the second test of this video, we'll be doing the cinematic mode. So we are shooting at 4K 30 and here we go. So basically what it does is that it focus rec. So usually in terms of filmmaking and cinematography, focus racking is usually done by a separate person where he controls the focus from one end to the other. So for cinematic mode, it basically does automatically. Basically removes that person's job. So yeah, so now we are focusing on the coil. And then once we move up, we will auto track Rose face and it goes there. So yeah, as you can see, it tracks really well when it sees a face. However, it does look a little bit artificially sharpened and saturated, which I don't really like. And to be honest, a lot of people can tell that apparently. Well, usually people in our line can tell it, so yeah. And it's really nice. Here are a few test shots. You need to tap your face. Then tap your face. Then you're on the... And now, I'm... Okay, what happens? So here are a couple of shots from the main camera itself and also the wide angle camera. And for the last test, we are testing the front-facing camera. And the front-facing camera, I would say it's and it looks normal, I guess. I can't really tell a difference. It looks quite clear. I guess with sufficient lighting, it will actually look decent lah. So yeah, it looks clear. So that's the testing for the video aspect of this camera. Now we're going to try out the photography one and compare, see whether you can tell the difference or not. So if you manage to guess correctly, comment down below. It will be very interesting to find out who actually knows their shit. But yeah, if you want more sample pictures, do stay tuned for next week's video or the next video, because I'll be doing a POV street photography with the iPhone 14 Pro Max. I'll be going around in the day to take a couple of pictures as well as the night to test the night light capabilities. So if you're interested, stay tuned for that. So moving on to other cool specs that may not be directly linked to photography or filmmaking is actually the dynamic island. So apparently there's a lot of hype out there that dynamic island is a very shitty name, and I kind of agree to a certain extent because I mean, Love Island, Dynamic Island. But I would say it's a very innovative and interesting way how Apple designed it, and it's so interactive to all the different apps where it allows you to check different timers, check different songs, your Face ID, and so on and so forth. So it's really cool apart from the notch. However, I wouldn't say it's a life-changing element in the phone because I mean, to be honest, personally, the notch itself has never bothered me, and coming from an Android, the Note 20 is just a round dot, so it's actually better than the iPhone apparently. But when you're watching videos on the iPhone 14 Pro or Pro Max, the pill-shaped cutout actually interferes with the video even more than the notch itself. So personally, I would say whether it be notch or pill, it doesn't really make a difference for me. But when the day comes where they totally remove the pill-shaped cutout and the notch and literally have a full screen like the Xiaomi Mix 4 or the Sony Xperia, where it's full screen and there's no black dot or pill-shaped cutout, I think that would be a major game changer. But so far, pill-shaped cutout is just meh for me lah. So at the start of the video, I mentioned that iPhone 14 Pro, the series was a letdown, and you might ask why. Mainly because if you are upgrading from the iPhone 13 Pro Max to the iPhone 14 Pro or the Pro Max, it will basically mean that you won't really get much changes apart from the dynamic island and longer battery life. I would say if you're a photographer or a filmmaker, it will make more sense for you to upgrade from the 13 to 14, reason being of the very much better camera. 48 megapixels pictures, 4K cinematic, and also 4K ProRes for the bigger capacity phones. But if you're not a photographer or a filmmaker, or you don't really take much photos or don't really bother about the camera aspects of the phone, I would say stick to the iPhone 13 Pro Max or just get the 13 Pro Max because it's a lot cheaper. And also in my opinion, iPhone 14 Pro Max, the dynamic island is the first of its kind, or the first of its Apple kind. It will definitely have a few flaws and also basically more innovation in the near future, or maybe in iPhone 15 apparently, which has already rumors coming out. It's quite dumb though. And today is the 23rd of September, and as we speak, there are already issues with the iPhone 14. So apart from the dynamic island being copied, the camera on third-party apps is having some shaking issues. So you do want to take note of that if you're going to buy the phone. But however, Apple has responded with an update saying that the next iPhone update will solve this issue. So let's pray that it happens. And so far for me, the issue has never occurred to me. So you're gonna get the phone and use a lot of third-party apps for the camera itself. Do take note of that. Yeah, and even Steve Jobs' daughter posted a meme about upgrading from iPhone 13 to iPhone 14, which you can see here. But yeah, I would say if you're upgrading from the iPhone 11 or lower, or maybe the 12 as well, I would say it's a much more better deal compared to if you're upgrading from the 13. Unless you're a big Apple fan, then okay lah, you must get every phone. But yeah, this is basically my 2 cents of iPhone 14 Pro Max and the Pro and the iPhone 14 series. I changed from Android, I use a Note 20, so yeah, it kind of makes sense. And yeah, I'm trying to get into the Apple ecosystem, so next is a Mac Studio. But then my wife don't let me. So this is the end of the video, but not the end of the iPhone series, because in the next video we are actually taking a POV street photography with the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and as you can tell, we are actually using the iPhone 14 Pro Max to film the outro. So if you're interested, do stay tuned on that. And yeah, thank you for watching this video. I hope you like this video. Hopefully I do not get drowned out by all the other tech YouTubers doing the iPhone 14 video. So do remember, like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye! And the phone fly.